The entire world will be forced to use XRP and other crypto assets as we enter this new digital phase. Are you ready? Let's play the clip.
The tipping point for crypto adoption. It is no longer a benefit, it is a necessity, and is being forced to all of the big institutions, users to adopt crypto right now. There's a vulnerability in centralized systems, and it's getting exposed. After I show you what just happened, it is over. There is no doubt in my mind that we will have massive tipping point adoption for crypto and blockchain. For the first time in human history, November 13th and the other day, we had the first AI orchestrated cyber espionage campaign. Basically, there was an entity that started attacking Anthropic, the creators of Claude AI, and they were running AI agents. They essentially duplicated a whole bunch of AI agents and sent them at Anthropic and tried to take over with rogue AI entities. They're literally saying from their own mouth, they believe that we've reached an inflection point when it comes to cybersecurity to where these organizations are using AI agents, bro. They're using systematic evaluations showing that cyber capabilities are doubling every 6 months. So these real world cyber attacks are not even being done by humans anymore. They're being done by AI agents. And they're predicting that these capabilities will continue to evolve, meaning some type of robotic AI war. And I'm telling you that any centralized entity on the face of the planet is going to be forced to adopt the anti-fragility properties of blockchain technology. Let me show you. Now, this was first exposed by JP Morgan partnering with the blockchain Base. Essentially, Base upgraded X402 to allow agentic capabilities on its blockchain. JP Morgan has a stablecoin. They partnered with Base, and then they also partnered with Alibaba. And essentially, the reason why they partnered with Base and JP Morgan didn't go straight to Alibaba is because they have to contain the AI agent in a blockchain security infrastructure. There is no other way to contain the AI agent. Up until the creation of blockchain, we've had an issue called the double spend problem. And essentially, any piece of information on the internet can be duplicated. Any image, any video can be duplicated, and we don't know what the original source is. It's called the double spend problem, and it confirms no centralized system can solve it without trusting an administrator. So we need human intervention to essentially confirm if something is real or not. Blockchains are the first thing in natural history that create economic walls around digital value. This is how it works. Rewriting blockchain history requires exceeding a cumulative cost that security itself. This is the first mechanism in human history that forces an attacker to burn more resources than it could ever steal. So basically, the only way to attack Bitcoin is to spend more value than the entire Bitcoin network itself. So whoever the attacker is essentially will lose everything. Much the same thing with Ethereum. So Bitcoin is pretty much unhackable. Ethereum is the same, but the only difference is that Ethereum is programmable to any software on the face of the planet. And guess what? Base stacks on top of Ethereum. So what I'm saying is the AI agent could supersede human intellect all it wants. It could become smarter than humans. You could spend 1 million AI agents at a specific attack vector, but the simple fact that they have to have more economic value than the entire system itself makes it unhackable, anti-fragile, and it's literally impossible to hack is what I'm trying to explain, unless the AI agent itself spend more economic value than the entire chain itself. This is how blockchain works. Centralized systems fail because administrators are the single point of failure. We need decentralization. 80% of all cyber breaches came from insider privileges, not the actual structure itself.
I think this speaks to a larger problem with our society right now and how data is so fragile. And how if somebody somewhere wants to get something, they will get it. And the way to protect it is to move it onto blockchain. So imagine your doctor's records, your driver's license information, your social security information. Imagine all of this sensitive data that has been leaked hundreds of times, I bet, in your lifetime. I'm sure you've gotten the email saying, we've had a data breach. Your information is shared, right? Your password is shared. I'm sick of it, right? The way that we can prevent and bring some of these hacks down is by moving all of this data and information to blockchain. That's how we know this is going to be the future of the entire financial system, because they have to do it. If not, they're not going to exist. It's going to be all gone, right? Because all these AI agents and as well as other hackers are just going to run the mill with the place, right? All right, let's shift the gear here. I wanted to set the tone for the video. I thought I kind of like that guy. He's fun. He's got a lot of good information. Here's Kyle Chase talking about why this cycle feels so slow. Let me play.
Raoul Pal pointed out that Bitcoin is following the ISM, the Global Business Cycle Indicator. Rates elevated for longer than usual, which extended the business cycle. The Treasury stretched average debt maturity from 4 years to 5 years, which slowed the liquidity rotation that normally feeds into Bitcoin. And in his mind, that means that the entire macro clock shifted. And that shift added another year to the cycle. Okay, let's continue with what we have now. This moved the liquidity peak from 2025 to 2026. And that means the Bitcoin cycle could be following it. People expected 2026 to be the down year because that's what the old model told them. They tried to get ahead of it by selling early in 2025, which created weakness that the market then fed on. Enough early sellers can distort the cycle itself. That creates a strange loop. People acted on an idea from the past. Their actions reshaped the present. And now the cycle looks off, completely different. The schedule's not right. Something is different. But the underlying structure of the liquidity cycle, the business cycle, has stayed intact. And here's the part that ties everything together. Raoul's research shows that global liquidity should peak in 2026. That means the money cycle that Bitcoin follows still has room to expand. Bitcoin's cycle is moving in step with that timing, which explains the slower movement we've seen this year.
So it sounds like the cycle could be going into 2026 here with a lot of things still pending. I wanted to play this clip from Ray Dalio. I thought that was good to kind of add to this video.
I have a small percentage of Bitcoin I've had for forever, like 1% of my portfolios.
But do you think you should have more? We keep watching.
But I think I've said the same thing over and over again about Bitcoin. I think the problem of Bitcoin is it's not going to be a reserve currency for major countries because it can be tracked and it could be conceivably with quantum computing controlled, hacked, and so on and so forth. I have a small
Interesting. Ray Dalio, not too bullish on Bitcoin technology long term. I find that pretty interesting. All right, and then this was like shocking when I heard this. Let me just play it. I don't want to describe it to you. I just want you to hear it first and foremost.
Sort of one of the fundamentals. Now, there's something else going on within the Bitcoin community that kind of non-crypto people need to know about. And that is ultimately, Van Eck has been around before Bitcoin. We will walk away from Bitcoin if we think the thesis is fundamentally broken. We don't right now. But you always have to look at the underlying technology. And the Bitcoin community has been asking itself about, is there enough?
Wait, did he just say what I think he said? That if the Bitcoin thesis doesn't like go the right way, they will walk away from Bitcoin? Like, hold on, let's just take a deep breath so we can really understand what he's saying here. Hold on 1 second.
There's something else going on within the Bitcoin community that kind of non-crypto people need to know about. And that is ultimately, Van Eck has been around before Bitcoin. We will walk away from Bitcoin if we think the thesis is fundamentally broken. We don't right now. But you always have to look at the underlying technology. And the Bitcoin community has been asking itself about, is there enough encryption in Bitcoin? Because quantum computing is coming. And then secondly, is there enough privacy in Bitcoin? And so a lot of Bitcoin OGs or maxis have been looking at Zcash. And Zcash,
what's that?
Zcash is a token, it's sort of related to Bitcoin with a lot more privacy. Because the kind of garbage that we got about Bitcoin 4 years ago is it's like used for all bad illicit behavior. But now everyone kind of realizes when you move money around on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can see it. You can see it move from one wallet to another. And a lot of people are looking for more privacy.
That is very interesting. That means that Van Eck and maybe other financial institutions are having conversations about their strategy with Bitcoin. And part of that strategy could be just to walk away. That sent chills up my spine. I don't know about you, but wow. And remember, he accidentally said crypto and then he corrected himself to say Bitcoin, right? He's saying, we'll walk away from crypto, I mean Bitcoin. So they're specifically talking about the problems that Bitcoin has. Quantum computing is around the corner, right? How is Bitcoin going to be quantum resistant? Can Bitcoin withstand all of this actual, like when you start to FUD the market, right? You're kind of making up all of these things that could happen, this and that. Bitcoin has a lot of issues with it, right? Who created it, right? Who's Satoshi? Who controls that million Bitcoin worth over $100 billion? We're not quite over 100 billion right now, right? What could happen to Bitcoin in the future? I think there's a lot of uncertainty here, right? Because Bitcoin is just a store of value. I'm using the words that Jack Mallers, less than 2 years. So Chad Steingraber put this out. In less than 2 years, the total amount of Bitcoin acquired by all ETFs reached over $110 billion at today's price. The first and second year is the most aggressive growth. This model accounts for all outflows during the timeline. If all XRPs do just 50% in comparison to Bitcoin, 55 billion in XRP in less than 2 years, $25 billion in XRP in 1 year. This is kind of how much would be acquired. 13 billion acquired by all ETFs by end of 2026. Roughly over $1 billion acquired by all ETFs per month. 271 million acquired per week, 54 million acquired per day, 4 million acquired by each of the funds, 12 funds per day. Again, even 50% less of Bitcoin's performance, the entire circulating supply would be gone in just those 2-year period. That's a pretty interesting number. It's Saturday. Let's have some fun. 70 billion in value target, 5 months. Assume 12 funds, IBIT performance, 1 fund, assume current XRP price 172. 12 fund target 70 billion. Here's kind of what you'd be looking at. 12 individual fund at 5-month average, about 3 billion XRP. And then you'd have about almost 6 billion each fund assets under management in 5 months. 1 week accumulation needed, 151 million XRP. And as you can see, here's some of the other data. So man, we can play some serious mind games here with how much XRP could be taken off the market. It's going to be really, interesting to see play by play here. All right. Chad Steingreiber says, you know what OTC desks do? They're not sitting on billions of XRP hoping someday wants it. The OTC desks are going to source it by any means necessary, including calling up holders, asking if they want to buy from them. So this is where a lot of the XRP has come for the ETFs, OTC desks, and private sellers, private markets. Sooner or later here, they're going to run out. And when they do, the only place they can go is to exchanges, or they could ask Ripple, but Ripple would probably, most likely, I think Ripple would say, go buy it from exchanges, right? Because Ripple's whole business is around XRP. And if XRP does good, Ripple's business will do good. They can go acquire more companies. They can use that money, that treasure that they have, to go out and become the largest company in the world as far as financial institutions. And I think that's what they're going to do. And I mean, what would you do if you were in Brad Garlinghouse or you were the decision maker at Ripple and OTC desks ran out, dark pools ran out, and the only way they could get XRP is 2 ways. 1, they could go to public exchanges, or 2, they could buy it from you. What would you tell them? Like, if you had the power to say, yeah, sure, I'll sell you some XRP, or no, go buy it from the open market, what do you think they're going to say? You tell me what you would say in the bottom. I want to know in the comments. All right, all of these giants haven't even filed for spot XRP ETF yet. BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard, JP Morgan Asset Management, State Street, Invesco, Charles Schwab, T. Rowe Price, and PIMCO. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? Franklin Templeton and Grayscale are launching their XRP spot ETFs on November 24th. We got 1.5 trillion assets under management and 40 billion. It is coming, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Charles Hoskinson, the biggest financial transfer in history, XRP is going to blossom.
The fundamentals are just sound. There's no way for these markets to stay depressed forever. They're just reflecting the current macro environment.
Charles, it's a fascinating conversation. I am genuinely coming at this as a layman. I understand very little about crypto. But one thing I'll take on faith that, it's going to go back up to 250,000. I personally haven't got a clue. But do we need 18,000 different types of coin? This is my point. Again,
No.
But Bitcoin, get it. Ethereum, get it. Solana, get it. Doge, whatever. But 18,000, Charles?
Well, yeah, you got a lot of websites too. So, anytime you have an emerging technology, there's 1,000 flowers that bloom, and not all those flowers survive the winter. So there's always a great explosion and then a Cambrian extinction of companies. And then there's going to be a consolidation to a collection of dominant standards. The challenge is that we're just moving very quickly, and you're not talking about one technology class. When you look at crypto, it's not just a financial asset. You're also talking about protocols to run social networks and artificial intelligence and supply chains and medical records. So it's kind of a rewiring of the back end of society. And the real value proposition is global trade. This is the only technology we have when China and Russia and the United States aren't getting along, where we can still do global business and have some fair rules that don't change every 15 minutes. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't worry about tariffs anymore. Now we do. And I was old enough to remember when we had transnational groups that actually had teeth, but now we have great powers conflict like the old Soviet days again. So you need a safe commercial space, and that's what the cryptocurrency space is providing. And innovation is going to create a tremendous amount of competition. But remember, you're talking about 8 billion people playing in this space, not just a single nation state or a single standard.
Sure.
So overall, I think we're growing at the right rate. If you look year by year, we gain more people, we gain more capital. In the last 15 years, we've gone from pretty much nothing to a multi-trillion-dollar market. And there's no other technology class that's had the opportunity to grow this quickly relative to where it's at.
I thought that was great. You know, like how we kind of explained that in the spring we have all of these flowers, in the winter not all of them make it. I think that was, you know, a good analogy on the crypto market, where you have all of these different technologies and communities competing against each other. But in the end, there's going to be only a few that win. That is why I'm so focused on just a few crypto assets. I used to be spread out and buying all of these different things, but as I've learned in the crypto market over time, most technologies don't make it. Most projects, most communities, most assets just fail. So I am just going to focus on a few tokens going forward, and that is what I'm going to bet every single thing on. All right, guys, I'll leave it there. Obviously, I'm exhausted at this point. I had just a really tough week in my family with what's going on with my dad, and I'm trying to just keep up with this. But yeah, I'm gonna get some rest now. All right, thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend.